Next up, taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Forte. So this is going to be a fully comprehensive look at how all of the different buttons work and moving through that cluster screen. So let's go for it. First thing I'm going to point out, the steering wheel itself is going to be a manual telescoping. So just by our left knee there, we do have a little release. We're just going to drop that down. And like I said, telescoping, so in, out, up and down as necessary. Once you've got that perfect position, you're going to click it, lock it back into place. Now, we've got two sticks, left and right side. Stick on the left-hand side. On the very tip of that, we can rotate it in order to adjust what's going on with our lights. I always just recommend keeping in the auto setting. If you have fog lamps, we can also adjust that there. If you want to use your high beams, we can flip in order to just kind of flash them, turn them on, or we can push away in order to turn it into the auto mode instead. So it's going to dim them if it recognizes an oncoming vehicle. Along the right-hand side, that's going to be for our front windshield wipers, so we can kind of adjust out the speed from here, pull in towards us in order to get that front windshield wiper fluid going. So it's very straightforward. Now, the wheel itself might be heated, might not be heated, just depending on whether you're in Canada or the States and which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. But I mean, it is nice. It wraps all the way around. Super comfortable. One really cool thing, if I drop you down just a tiny little bit, we're in the GT line, but we do have a flat bottom steering wheel instead. So if you're taking your GT on the track, it's just easier to grip, turn, whatever the case may be. So it is kind of cool that the Forte has that on the steering wheel as a default. Really, really nice. Now, buttons along the left-hand side are going to let us do a few things. So this one is going to be our voice command prompt. So you can see there, so we've got our voice command prompt pulling up. So that's going to let us do things like change songs, radio stations. We can navigate using our voice. If we were hooked up through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, we could do a longer press and hold if we wanted to activate either our Siri or our Google Assistant. We've got two individual buttons here, so mode buttons. So what that's going to do is let us change between a few things. So we push that and we can select what we want it to do. Easiest thing, just let it go through pretty much everything. So when you push this button, you're essentially changing out the mode for the music that you're listening to. From there, we can push this bottom button, and that's the same thing, going to let us do a few different things. When we press this button, what does it do? Does it end a call? Does it change it to privacy mode? Does it pull up our map, etc., which is kind of cool. So we have map selected now, so when we push that button, it pulls up our map instead. So you can customize what the buttons do to a degree. We can answer or hang up on a phone call. We've got our volume rocker here as well. We can press in the middle in order to be able to mute out. And then we can also change between presets. So if we go to our radio for a second, so we can drop up and down between our presets by moving up and down on the steering wheel there. But one cool thing is that we also would have the flexibility to do a longer press and hold if we wanted to. So if we're on, let's go radio. If we just press and hold, it's going to let us seek that way instead. So whether we end up seeking that way or whether we just kind of go up and down, like I said, you can also change radio stations using your voice by pressing this button as well. So it's going to be a matter of preference there. Now, along the right-hand side of the steering wheel, series of other buttons available. So this is the button in order to turn on the smart cruise control system. So you can see it's saying conditions not met. But in order to be able to use it, we have to start driving, we turn it on, and then it's essentially cruise control. So once you've got your set speed, you can either increase or decrease by moving up and down on this side. So we just kind of push up and down this way. Now, if we do have to press the brake ourselves, we can just resume by pressing the middle button there. But it's the smart cruise control system. So it's essentially the set it and forget it cruise. So it's an adaptive cruise. So if the car in front of you slows down, yours is automatically going to brake. If they pick up speed, change lanes, whatever the case may be, it'll pick you right back up to your set speed again. This one is going to be for our lane distance. So actually I'm going to see if I can, if I start driving here. Yeah, no, I'm not going fast enough. So I'm going to have to do a walkthrough on how to use that system. So if you want to see a live example of how this works, check down in the description below, but it's super straightforward. This one, it's going to show in the cluster screen up there, and it's going to let you know how close or far you're going to be away from the vehicle in front of you. 4 different settings that are going to be available there. And then this one is our lane follow assist. So we've got lane keep assist in the Kia world, lane follow assist. I love the follow assist because it's essentially self-driving. It's going to pretty much keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. It is a really, really cool system. Next to, so we've got these two buttons that are going to work in tandem with one another. This one's going to let us flip through the pages of the cluster screen. This one's going to let us go up and down, and it's going to work as our OK or our reset button. So I'm going to zoom in a tiny little bit there so you can see what's going on. All right, here we go. So very first page is, back to this one. So that's going to be just our generic settings as well as our attention level. So if we start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually that's going to tell us that we should probably take a break. From there, we've also got some settings. So if we press and hold the OK button, it's going to launch up settings on that media screen. So we've got our smart cruise control reaction. So do we want a fast, normal, or slow reaction to the car that's in front of us? Driving convenience settings. Do we want our drive assist, and do we want the vehicle to automatically change speeds just based off of our navigation, which is a really, really useful setting to have. We've got our warning timers. So do we want standard or late timing if we're coming close to potentially hitting a vehicle? We've got our warning sound and haptics as well. So what that means is that whenever we have any sort of our driver assistance settings, so things for pedestrian alerts, collision alerts, things like that, priority means that it's going to lower all of the other volume in the vehicle so that we can hear what's potentially going on. And it's the same idea when we get into parking priority. We've got driver attention warnings, so whether or not we want those to show up, yes or no. The leading vehicle departure is kind of a neat one. So as you start to drive, well, as the car in front of you starts to drive, if you're not moving, it's going to let you know that the leading vehicle in front of you has taken off, which is kind of cool. We've got our forward sensing safety as well. So if the vehicle recognizes a potential collision, it's going to actively assist for us, which means it's going to brake, it's going to give us a warning, or it's going to do nothing. I always just recommend keeping that safety setting on unless you're taking your car onto the track. From there, we've got lane safety. So it can do, again, a few things. So if it starts to realize that we're going over, left, right, whatever the case may be, it can assist to nudge us into our lane. It can give us a warning, or it can do nothing. Blind spot safety, we've got a few different options. So safe exit warning, if we go to open up our door and there's somebody that's in our blind spot, it's going to let us know. So it can actively assist, it can give us a warning, or it can do nothing whenever there's a potential obstacle in our way when we go to open the door. So if you don't want to door a cyclist, really, really useful setting to turn on. We've also got our parking safety, so rear cross traffic alert. As we go to back up, if the vehicle recognizes somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the left or right side, it's going to let us know of a potential collision there as well. And then we've also got some camera settings, so we could also look at our parking lines when we're in reverse, so whether or not we want those ones to show up, so it's kind of cool. But if you want a fuller walkthrough on how to use the media screen, check in the description below for that one instead. But moving back out to the cluster screen instead, so page 1 is done. Page 2, we've got our driving info. So we've got a few different options there. So we've got our, firstly, digital speedometer, which is fantastic. Like, yeah, we've got our tachometer on the left, speedometer on the right, but it is kind of cool that we've also got it available digital. So along the very top is our current drive info. So this is going to reset every time the car's turned off and then turn back on again, or you can press and hold the button here. So this one, look down, right there. So we're going to press and hold if we want to reset that value. Same idea, so since refueling, so once we fill up the tank, it's automatically going to reset that one, or we can just reset it ourselves. And then we've also got our total accumulated info. So for the life of the vehicle, however long we've been driving for, until we do a reset there. So you've got a few different options that are available. Next out, we've got our compass. And one interesting thing, so if we look at our map for a second, so we're gonna go map, let's actually find a point of interest icon. Let's look for Tim Hortons. Nice and Canadian of me. Okay, we're going to select the first one, set as destination, close, start guidance.
The route guidance will start now.
Look at that, right through the cluster screen. So it's not a full map, but at the same time, it still is really useful that we've got that popping up in that middle screen. It gives us two different options available. So we've got 2.1 kilometers to get to our destination with a little arrow telling us where to go. And we've also got our estimated time of arrival, which is kind of cool. From there, cancel the route out, and it just defaults back to our compass instead. So it is kind of neat that we've got that setting. Next up, we've also got our tire pressure, which it's not going to show until we actually start driving. So if you're wondering why that's not showing, start driving on the screen and it's going to reset for you there instead. So it's really straightforward. Now, we do have a few other things. So I did mention we've got our tachometer and then our speedometer. We've got our current fuel level along the very bottom. And then we've got our engine temperature along the side there. As we go to open up the door, you can also see what doors are currently open, which is kind of cool. And then one other thing to point out, when we turn the vehicle off, you can see we've got our current drive info for the session. Check rear seats happens because the door is open. So it's going to remind us that we've got to check our rear seats. So it's a very, very useful setting from that perspective. But a lot of things that were covered off there, but that's everything you need to know about the steering wheel and the cluster inside of the Kia Forte. That was how you use the steering wheel and the cluster screen inside of the Kia Forte. Pretty straightforward, right? But if you ran into any problems, you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. I'm more than willing to talk you through any issues that you might be having. If you want that fuller walk around on how to use the smart cruise control system, you can find that link down in the description on top of that. But if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care.